Hello, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Laura. I'm the owner of Designs Laura, and today I'd like to talk about how I negotiate prices when I'm at a garage sale or a flea market. Those are two places I feel comfortable because it's widely accepted to do so. I had to teach myself how to do this because when I first started, I had absolutely no experience in negotiation at all, and I did it completely wrong for a good 10 years. I binge watched Rick Harrison on the Pawn Stars and Laura Spencer on Flea Market Flip, and I started to notice a pattern and a trend with both of them and how they would negotiate with people, whether it was in Rick's pawn shop where he was the buyer, or Laura Spencer where she was helping other people make buys for a profit. They were using the same lines over and over and over, and I noticed that there was a rhythm to it when the seller was kind of also practiced at negotiating, and they would land somewhere in the middle. So I thought I would share with people what I learned and how it works for me. So I did come up with an acronym that's really off the wall and is quirky. Maybe that'll help people remember it, maybe it won't. But the acronym is the word odor: observe, decide, open, reply. Those are the 4 steps. The or the last step really is going to be up to the seller. The buyer generally initiates the negotiation. None of what I'm going to say is a blanket statement. There's all different kinds of ways to do this, and if you're doing it successfully and have tips for us, put a comment down below. I'd love to learn more about how to do this. So the first step is observe. Observe the weather. If it's a rainy day, maybe sales are lower. The person might need more sales that day. Is it the first day of a sale, the last day of the sale? Do they have a lot of merchandise? Another thing that I do when I'm kind of looking at the merchandise as I first get there is I listen for conversations that are going on with the seller and other people. I don't make it obvious. I don't make contact. I'm focused on what I'm doing, looking at the merch, and I'm listening. And this actually, I'm going to use the example that happened to me this last fall when I was at a garage sale. It was the first day of the sale. It was early in the morning. The weather was gorgeous. It was bougie. She had high-end brand name items, and she had a lot. She was working by herself. She had a lot to sell. So those kind of things, we're thinking, well, I might negotiate a little bit, or I might not negotiate at all. I'm not sure, because sometimes people are attached to their items, especially on the first day. It's early in the sale. I'm not too sure, but she had a lot of high-end handbags, home decor, and clothing and shoes and jewelry. Jewelry. So I was looking, and I overheard a conversation where a lady was checking out or paying for her merchandise, and the seller was just saying these really low prices, just giving them the buyer wasn't asking for a price. She was just looking at every item, and there was probably about 20-25 pieces of clothing. She was just giving really low prices. And I thought, okay, well, there's my observation. Maybe I will try to negotiate for a low price. She wants to get rid of her stuff. That was my observation, the first step. So then I kind of moved on to the decision that yes, I'm going to go ahead. Yes, I am going to negotiate, and I am going to try to negotiate a lower price, not just a couple dollars off, but a lower price. So then I moved on to the next step, open. I have 2 lines memorized for my opening line. I'm going to say both lines. I'm going to tell you why I included everything in the line, and then I'll tell you how it worked for me. So the 2 lines I use are, and I hold the item up so they can see it. It's like, would you take $5 for this tote bag? It's marked 10. The other line I use is I hold up the tote bag and I say, what is the lowest you would take for this tote bag? It's marked 10. Holding up the item and saying what it's priced, I feel are important because the person may not remember what they had it marked. If you're kind of casual and just kind of point in a general direction, they may not realize what exactly it is that you're asking about, and that just that lack of communication or lack of clarification can make the negotiation not as good as you want it to be. I think clarity is important if you're really going to go for that price. Okay, so the first line that I used, and I did go low. I don't usually offer half. I feel like that's just too low, and it was a really nice bag. I'd have paid 10. I really would have. So the line I went with was, will you take $5 for this handbag? It's marked 10. I had a $5 bill in my hand. So instead of the handshake, which is what Rick Harrison does, he will give that really low offer. He sticks his hand out and the person will instinctively start to shake his hand. And then they pull back realizing, oh my gosh, I don't want to agree to that. What I do instead is I hold out the exact change. I held out that $5 bill. She looked me in the eye and she said, yes, she took the $5 bill. So I figured that was a win. I got a genuine leather, large, like new condition tote bag for $5. I was really pleased with that. Now the other line is, what is the lowest you will take for this tote bag? It's marked $10. Now you're going to be waiting for that fourth step, which is the reply. Hopefully they say something. You know, I'd say maybe 999 times out of 1,000 you're going to get a reply. If not, you might want to just keep on shopping, or maybe I don't know. I've never had it happen to me, but I suppose it's not guaranteed. So let's say that in this instance she would have said, well, I'll take 8. You don't have to, as a buyer, you do not have to accept that. Usually the third number thrown out, this is the rhythm of it that I noticed with Rick and Laura, was that there was usually 3 numbers, and that's kind of, if it went past that, it kind of got a little awkward. So I would then, my reply to her $8 would have been on that day, how about we meet in the middle at $7.50? And it would be up to her then whether to say yes or no. She could say, no, I really want the 8. So kind of know in your mind what is your top dollar you're going to pay so that you can keep things moving. Maybe they got other people wanting to pay. Be mindful other people might be observing how you're negotiating. So those 2 opening lines I feel are really good for people who have never negotiated, or maybe you're just uncomfortable doing it. If I had not observed the low price offerings, I would have said, well, you could just go down by $1 if you're uncomfortable, because most people are accepting of a $1 off at $10 items. Just say, will you take $9 for this tote bag? It's marked 10. And the other one where you maybe feel uncomfortable, where you could say, well, what is the lowest you will take for this bag? It's marked 10. They'll give you a number, and if you're uncomfortable, just take that number. And if she offers 8, you can say yes. Now, what Rick Harrison does, because he uses this approach a lot, he says he will say to the person, what is the lowest you will take for this? Say he was selling a $100 guitar. Let's use a $100 guitar as an example. The seller is in his pawn shop and he wants $100 out of this guitar. And Rick will say, well, what is the lowest you will take for this? And let's say the seller says, well, okay, $95 is the lowest I will take. And Rick says, he would literally say, well, I'll give you 50, and put his hand out for the handshake. And the guy would, pull his hand back like, no, I'll take 90. And Rick would say, you know what? Now here's the reply, and it isn't always a yes and no. It is a polite way to get out of the negotiation. He'll say, you know what, ma'am, we are just too far apart. If you ever change your mind, come back in. And that was a way that Rick was able to keep the customer, but not do that deal. The guy was too attached to the guitar, or maybe he didn't understand that Rick needed to still make a profit. So it is okay to reject the offer. Find a way to say it so that you don't lose your customer, which I thought Rick was really good at that, when he would say, man, we're just too far apart. Come back in if you ever change your mind. And sometimes the person would come back in a couple months later. So it was really nice to see that. So I hope that this helped. I'm really hoping to help someone who's never negotiated out in the wild, that you would take this video, maybe write down the odor, observe, decide, open, and then wait for that reply. Use that one time to see if you can successfully negotiate. And if it's your first time, do it at a place where it's really widely accepted, a garage sale or a flea market. Sometimes at antique stores, they'll have a sign up that they will try to contact the dealer, the owner of the booth. You gotta hope that they can get a hold of the person. And usually they're out picking, so they might be hard to get a hold of, but pick a place where you feel comfortable. go down $1 or let the seller name the price. Try it once or twice. And if you're a seller out in the field, also be aware of the way people will negotiate. So don't do what I did for the first 10 years and just say yes, no. And sometimes if I would get that really horrible offer and I would just kind of ignore them. Or I had a smart aleck reply where if someone had offered me $2 for a $10 bag, I probably would have said, I'll take 12. I would go up just kind of in a smart aleck way, which I don't recommend doing that. I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. I really had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just saying the wrong thing. I did not get any extra sales, and I didn't earn repeat business by doing that. So as a seller out there, you know, come up, you can write them down. Most people have a little area where their sacks or their wrappings are. Write down a few replies that are polite, because sometimes you're caught off guard. And for me, if I can write them down and I get used to saying them over and over, you will be surprised that even if you don't make that deal, you still leave the door open for another deal in the future. So I would love for you guys to put down in the comments your tips for negotiating, or if you decide to go out this weekend, next weekend, weather's, you know, permitting, let me know if this helped you or not. Or was I completely wrong? Because it's working for me here, but I would love to hear you guys' experience with negotiating. If you've never done it before, and you go out and successfully, even if you say 50 cents, I would really love to read about it. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.